Hello everybody, welcome to the channel. We will start with the reading exercises today. So as I had explained earlier, we will start doing reading exercises on a daily basis so as to improve our diction and our fluency, right? So over here we have a PDF. It's a book. And we will read it. Okay. So let us start our exercise and just follow how I am reading this book. It would help you immensely if you do enough practice of it. Okay. So, right. The report also touched upon the role of the US in the event of Soviet aggression. Early support from the US is essential to the security of our interests. It is suggested how this support could be secured. A world organization might well result in the USA assuming definite military responsibility in the Indian Ocean area, despite the fact that she has few direct interests there. However, it added it would be necessary to ensure that the USA would not regard participation in regional defense measures as a pretext for intervention in questions involving the relationship between Great Britain and India. The seeds of some form of partition of India and setting up of multinational defense agreement CENTO can be discerned in this report, as also the British anxiety to keep India away from the influence of its main partner, the USA. The records do not show that Wavell was associated in any way with this assessment. However, his view that Britain's prime interest in India was strategic because of its usefulness as a military base, transit point, and contributed to fighting manpower was exactly the same as in the report. Only on one point did his views differ, whereas the report envisaged the possibility of the continuation of British control over India till 1955. Wavell had no such hope. Wavell's most important meeting in London was with Churchill, which was held on 29th March 1945. A record of this meeting is unavailable, but one can get some idea of what was discussed from a cryptic entry made by the Viceroy in his diary that night. The PM then launched into a long journey about India, which lasted for about 40 minutes. He seems to favor partition of India into Pakistan, Hindustan, and Princestan. On whether there was any talk on how such a goal was to be achieved, the Viceroy's diary is silent. Wavell's talks with the members of the Indian Committee of the War Cabinet, headed by Clement Attlee, was spread over 2 months. They revolved around his proposal to hold a conference of Indian leaders to discuss the formation of a politically representative executive council that would contain an equal number of caste Hindus and Muslims and would function with a minimum interference from the Viceroy. Further, Wavell felt that before the conference was called, those Congress party leaders still in jail should be released. The War Cabinet finally agreed to the proposal, but it was understood that Jinnah's assent to the composition of the proposed Executive Council was a prerequisite. Initially, Churchill hesitated to take the plunge, but later yielded after he was assured that he need have no fears that a government in India would result from the proposed land. And indeed, the conference was destined to fail. Despite these assurances, Churchill may not have given his consent to such experiments, but for the necessity to trump pressure mounting once again from across the Atlantic. While Wavell was holding consultations in London, the British Foreign Secretary Sir Anthony Eden had travelled to the US in April 1945 to attend a San Francisco conference to launch the United Nations. Taking advantage of this visit, the Americans decided once more to tackle the British on India. Both the US Secretary of State Edward R. Stettinius and the Assistant Secretary of State Joseph Grew spoke to Eden on the necessity for constitutional advance in India. The gist of the conversations were recorded by Grew on 17 May 1945 as follows. I had an opportunity to say to Eden that I thought that Mr. Stettinius had already spoken to him of our feeling that our prestige in the Far East would be greatly improved whenever a solution to the problem of India is found, and that we must always reckon with the future development of Asia for the Asiatics movement. I added that progressive steps in India would tend to offset the strengthening of such a movement. Mr. Eden made no comment except to say that he did not believe that the Indian problem would be settled as long as Gandhi lived. Despite Eden's stiff response, Britain within a few days was able to inform the Americans that arrangements had been made to set free the members of the Congress Working Committee kept in detention since 1942, and that Lord Wavell had been authorized to make a fresh proposal to the Indians. Churchill had successfully trumped Roosevelt's pressure tactics for granting self-government to India after the fall of Singapore by playing the Muslim or the Pakistan card through the Cripps mission. A Hindu-Muslim disagreement in a conference as proposed by Wavell would help to again quieten down the Americans. The Americans had continued their friendly pressure on the British for granting self-government to India in accordance with the policy laid down by the President as described in Chapter 4. In July 1944, John G. Winant, the US ambassador to the UK, on instructions from Washington, informed London that a satisfactory solution of the Indian problem should contribute much to the successful prosecution of the war in the Far East and is of great importance to the future peace of the world. However, Churchill ignored the advice, but in November 1944, the Americans got an opportunity to hit back. Drew Pearson, the well known journalist, published a piece alleging that Ambassador William Phillips, the special representative of the US President to India, had sent the following report. The morale of the Indian army, which he termed a purely mercenary force, was low. Britain had no intention to play much of a role in the war against Japan, and Churchill did not wish to apply the Atlantic Charter to India. This report made Churchill see red. Despite numerous urgent representations made by the British ambassador Lord Halifax that the White House or the State Department denied the report, the Americans refused to oblige. President Roosevelt, concurring with the acting Secretary of State, that we share in general the view expressed in the ambassador's letter. The Conference of Indian Leaders, called by Wavell on 25 June 1945, was a charade from the beginning to the end. Delegates from all the major parties, the representatives of the Sikhs and the scheduled castes and premiers of British provinces, present and former, including the Congress Party premiers who had resigned in 1939, were invited to meet the Viceroy in the Viceregal Lodge in the Raj's summer capital of Shimla, up in the Himalayas. It would transport the Indian leaders from the sweltering heat of the Indian plains in summer, some from jails, to a climate approximating summer in Scotland or Gstaad in Switzerland, amongst hillsides covered by pine, oak, and deodar trees, with spectacular views of snow-clad mountains to the north. In Shimla, they would either walk to the Viceroy's lodge or be carried there in a rickshaw, for no car except that of the Viceroy was permitted on the roads of the hill station. The rickshaw was a light wooden contraption with a double seat suspended over two wheels, which was pulled and pushed by five men with the help of poles attached to its front and rear. The lodge itself was a replica of a Scottish castle with towers and gabled windows surrounded by sloping lawns, gravelled paths, and miles of hedges of English summer flowers. Gandhiji also came to Shimla but did not attend the conference. Nehru was not invited because he did not fall within any of the categories for participation designated by Wavell. It was Jinnah in his London suits who was the star. The conference failed as it was planned to fail because Wavell refused to veto Jinnah's pretensions to represent all the Muslims of India. According to Durga Das, a journalist of great integrity, Jinnah told him in the lift of the Cecil Hotel, Shimla, towards the end of the conference, that he had been assured by friends in England through a member of the Viceroy's Executive Council that if he remained firm on the demand of exclusively representing the Muslims and thus breaking the conference, he would get Pakistan. One of the two secretaries of the Shimla conference has written, Hossein Imam, who attended the conference in his capacity as a leader of the Muslim League Party in the Council of State, stopped me on my way to the Cecil Hotel and said that a member of the Viceroy's Executive Council was advising Jinnah to stand firm. These British counsels to Jinnah were merely by way of abundant caution because Jinnah was already playing the British game. He used the Shimla conference to make a long statement, arguing fully the case for Pakistan and highlighting Hindu-Muslim differences, which provided enough material to London to pass on to the Americans. According to the US State Department secret documents, Wavell's officers briefed the American commissariat in Delhi on 8 separate occasions during and after the conference. Providing priority to the Muslims in the envisaged Viceroy's Executive Council could be understood as ensuring a safeguard for a minority, but sustaining Jinnah's claim as the sole spokesman of all the Muslims of India, when in both the Punjab and the NWFP, which is basically Northwestern Frontier Province, ministries of Muslims opposed to Jinnah were in office and commanded majorities in the legislatures, demonstrated that the British aim was not to install a new government in India, but something different. Wavell had before him the top secret and personal telegram sent by Sir Bernard James Clancy, the governor of the Punjab, dated 3rd July 1945, stating Jinnah's claim to nominate all Muslims appear to me in light of these meager hold on Muslim majority provinces to be outrageously unreasonable. If he is given 3 nominations out of, say, 5 Muslim seats, he should account himself fortunate indeed. And on the same date, the governor of Bengal, Richard Casey, who later became the foreign minister of Australia, warned Wavell in a top secret personal message that Khwaja Nizamuddin, the ex-Muslim League Bengal premier, had informed him that he believed Jinnah would accept a Punjabi Muslim who is neither a member of the Congress nor of the League. Babel knew all along that Jinnah would stick to his guns, a stand that would be unacceptable to the Congress party. He also knew that London would never agree to overrule Jinnah's demand, however absurd it may be, or let the Congress party enter his cabinet without the countervailing presence of the Muslim League in it. Therefore, enacting the Shimla Conference had no other purpose except to build up Jinnah against his Muslim rivals in the Punjab and to head off renewed American pressure for Indian self-government. And in this, Wavell succeeded brilliantly. The results of Shimla were recorded by the Punjab governor as follows. Since Jinnah succeeded by his intransigence in wrecking the Shimla conference, his stock has been standing very high with his followers and with a large section of the Muslim population. He was openly come out that the coming election will show an overwhelming verdict in favor of Pakistan. The uninformed Muslim would be told that the question he is called on to answer at the poll says, "Are you a true believer or an infidel or a traitor?" Against this slogan, the Unionists have no spectacular battle cry. Glancy then warned, "If Pakistan becomes an imminent reality, we shall be headed straight for bloodshed on a wide scale." He was so true. So this is how I have shown you how to read a book. Now I would be uploading many videos on book reading on a daily basis. I would try to upload them on a daily basis, but I would simply urge you all to still practice them and take wide tips from this video. Essentially, I would be making a holistic approach to reading exercises very shortly, but for the time being, you can start practicing from this video. So let me again go there and stop record.